Yeah. Take me back to day one. Like, who was Amitesh before any of this, before any of the, let's say, the YCs and before bits, before the ventures? Who was Amitesh at the day one for me and for my viewers?
So I come from a very heavily academic background. So both my parents were professors, my sister was into the academic field, and I have only one sibling. So 5 years elder to me. So a huge source of my inspiration and also a guiding light, right? That can be taken in two ways. I positively took it in a really good light. I looked at it as inspiration, did my own academic thing, and then I'm currently doing what I'm doing. So more background about that. 5 years elder sister. Everybody across relatives, so on and so forth, considered her to do really well. She got an international rank of 2 years continuously in the Science Olympiad, right? Organized by SOF. So bent up pressure. I would not say pressure on my behalf, but since the age of, I would say, since first grade, right? So there were expectations, subtle expectations, not too hard, but subtle expectations since first grade. Funny instance, the security guard of our primary school used to nudge me and be like, when are you going to get great? When are we going to see you on the newspapers? So that was a source of inspiration for me, not something to get scared of. And there's a funny interview moment. I don't know if it's there on the internet yet, but an interviewer asked me if I'll be as successful as my sister one day. And I said, just you watch, just wait. Right. So pretty fun stuff. So post that, I went along my mathematics route. So really loved math at a young age. Started going and diving deep into math since sixth grade. Did a lot of math heavy exercises, understanding concepts that other people would not look at in the same light as me. So number theory, game theory, understanding permutations and combinations. Then I attempted a few Olympiads, the TRMO, NMTC, IUQM. Did decently well in all of them. Got past the first round in majority of them, and realized that I really love math, right? And that led me into entering engineering. So 11th and 12th came by. Ninth and 10th was a little bit of a sad dismissal, I would say, because those are the best times of your life, as in school's peak. But yeah, so 11th, 12th came by. 11th, 12th, part of Alan, like a really rigorous course where there were really smart people in my batch, people who went on to get into maybe IIT Bombay CS, IIT Delhi CS, IIT Madras CS, like the top rankers of the bunch. But my 11th and 12th didn't go as well as I had planned, right? So that was my first hardship, I would say, a real hardship, because I had not really burnt out, but I didn't even put the effort that I would like to have put in. And I realized that, yeah, I don't really want to play that game. Then ended up having a few options to choose from ISI, Triple IT Bangalore, a few NITs, a few IITs, and BITS as my main option. Had a pretty clear idea on why I wanted to do what I wanted to do, which is essentially create value into the world. Pretty vague, but that's why I joined BITS. So that's my story up to there.
Damn, that was like a whole story. So you mentioned you had to like many people would have come and many people would ask you on like as you said, when are you going to become as great as your sister, or are you going to become as great as your sister? And you took it very sportingly, but deep down, don't you feel somewhere that uh, don't you feel some kind of pressure deep down? Because in front of the world, you might be like a very strong guy because everyone has a character to play. But behind, when nobody was watching, was it like a battle with you? Or was it like mentally tough for you to deal with it? Even though you respect your sister and you know you don't see her, you see her as a good competition, not in a bad way. But somewhat there might be a little bit of I won't say jealousy, but there would be a little bit of the people, because of you people have this expectations with me and something like that. So you never felt something like that?
Honestly, this happened to me at a very young age. I don't think my prefrontal cortex was developed enough to even process complex emotions like that. But quite honestly, from what I felt, it was never a negative thing, because at the end of the day, family is family. Somebody else becoming much more successful than you, or if you're much more successful than them, it doesn't really matter. It's a unit that works together. It's addition and not subtraction, right? So never really had that feeling. I feel The further she goes in life, she'll be able to help me. The further I go in life, I'll be able to help her. And at the end of the day, we're there for each other, right? So, not really. And even when people ask me questions like these, it still is sedimented that there might be some amount of healthy competition, but again, we're not in the same path per se. That she's gone completely in the academic path, where she did her master's from an ETH Zurich, and then now she's doing research at a really good company, Anthropic, and I'm going along a separate path. I'm doing the entrepreneurship route, right? So both give back value to society, but in slightly different ways. And I think if you join hands, it's much more powerful than like possibly competing with it.
That was a wonderful answer, man. Like, uh, yeah, I now I get what was going on. But growing up, were you might be creative growing up. You must have been creative, but were you the kid who always wanted to build something, who always had this one dream of creating something of its own, inventing something, or maybe discovering something, or did that flip switch happen later on the journey?
I am really, really thankful for having a really supportive family, not only just direct family, but extended family. I have an uncle from my brother's side. I call him Pulu. And he, since a young age, used to keep incentivizing me by saying, "Oh, look at our family's Einstein," right? So, again, very positive sentiments from all around. Helped me do really well academically. Ended up doing well throughout my school life with a very positive family. Did sports also during this time. I did art. So, overall, I would say pretty decently multifaceted. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's about building everything up, right? So again, coming back to your question was based on.
Uh, were you a kid who loved to build, or did that change came later in the journey?
So one thing that I truly believe in is experimenting and loving the process is the key, because you can't compete with someone who is doing it for his job per se, whereas you really love it, right? So whatever I started, wherever I started building or whatever I started doing, I always loved the process, right? I used to never do it if I don't like it. And fortunately enough, I loved academics. I loved playing football. I loved playing badminton. I loved studying, say, machine learning. I loved doing whatever I did because I used to understand the deeper sedimentary layers that were necessary and how it would help me later down the line and understanding the beauty of it. And the more I understood at a younger age, I understood how things are interconnected. Obviously, I'm at a very preliminary stage right now, but still, I could see how beautiful things are when they're interconnected with each other. So, from a young age, I would say I used to love the process, which led me to building things because that's more attached, it's more correlated with each other. So, I started building maybe a chessboard. We experimented with that, a group of my friends, when we were getting bored. Then we did an ML course together. A few of us started the course, then we couldn't finish it. Then I did it on my own. Then I tried to build a disease to symptom mapper, and then the curiosity kept building. So as curiosity keeps increasing, I think you just tend to divert your path more towards building on your own. So that's something that really, really got to me. And I realized later down in life that that's exactly what entrepreneurship is. And that's when I decided that, yeah, this just might be the route.
So, as you mentioned before, you said your uncle, what do you call him again?
Pulu.
Pulu.
P-value.
Right? Your uncle Pulu, he always had positive sentiments towards you, right? He always supported you, called you the Einstein of the family. So one, if you have people like that supporting you, you already you don't see things as a competition because if you're raised, I feel if you're raised in an environment like that where people uh treat you in a positive way rather than just comparing you to people and comparing your achievements to others. If they treat you in a positive way, there is a very less, I'd say, less chance of you being jealous or you being sad about the pressure you have to face, right? So it's like everyone in your household were always supportive towards whatever you wanted to do, or were there like some issues that you faced? Like can be generalized. It doesn't have like you don't have to take names or anything, but like in general, were there some issues? Or, like it was all very good since the start.
So this is an interesting story, right? You need to be really, really smart to understand what your parents would be fine with you doing and what they would not be fine with you doing. And there's a very gentle line between why they would not be fine with you doing it. As long as it's something that they're more risk averse about, there where you believe that the risk to reward ratio makes sense and you're very confident about it from like a first principles method, then maybe not telling them what you're doing makes sense. But you need to be really confident in what you're doing, right? I feel like as you grow up, you become more and more independent while also respecting your family and their decisions, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who gave you everything, right? But I'll just give you an example in my specific life. 11th and 12th is the time in every Indian's life where you're essentially put in a deadlock where you have to focus on either engineering or the medical side, right? So this is just a general household where you've performed decently well academically. So I was more on the engineering side, my whole family's on the engineering side, but a lot of people might be on either. So on the engineering side, you're assumed to go to a coaching center, maybe study at home, get the right resources, put your all into it. No sports, no side activities, no nothing, right? And just get into a good IIT, a good NIT, a good BITS, a good triple IT, so on and so forth. Whereas I believed that is important, that is really important, because the types of people you surround yourself with, the amount of benefit you can give them, the amount of benefit they can give you. Essentially, network is net worth, right? I thought it was really important, but also one thing that I believed in is if I don't explore myself and I don't find myself, or if I don't find something that I love, I won't enjoy the process. So at this point of time, there was this interesting program by Jane Street called the AMP program. So Jane Street, for all the viewers out there, is a high frequency trading firm. It takes the best of the best from India and they pay really good packages. So they had this program, and essentially it's for undergraduate students to get into and get an experience of what the quant world might look like. So it's a number theory course. You have to get selected for it. There's 3 rounds, so on and so forth. If I told my family that I'm applying for something like this during the peak time of JE, right, I would get a hard no. A hard, steadfast no. There's no considering it. If I see you preparing for it, it's not going to happen, right? Obviously, in a positive sentiment in the way that they're looking out for me. But again, so what I decided to do is to keep it hidden. In fact, not tell them at all, work on it, get past the first 2 rounds, in fact, get into the program, right? And even attend a few of the first online G meets where they were making us familiarize with the other people who were selected. Very small cohort, majorly people who've gotten into really good undergraduate programs in the US, a few Chinese people, 1 or 2 Indians, so on and so forth, right? The best talent in the world per se. And these are guys who went to Harvard, people who went to MIT, Stanford, so on and so forth. So good experience. No one knew about it. But essentially, after that, they had to call us into the New York office because it was a on-site program. The initial days were just a briefing, and unfortunately, me being naive, did not know that I need a work permit for all of that. And when they sent me a message on Gmail saying that, see you in the office on Monday, I was like, that is not possible from my end. And then I realized I couldn't continue the program. But that taught me a lot. In fact, even applying for IIM Indore through the ITMAT process was not recommended by my family. One day before the exam, and I told them that I need to be dropped to the center, they were like, no, you're not writing it, right? And then I had to convince them to write it. And then I got selected for the interview round, and the interview round happened. It was great, right? And all of these. So sometimes you need to know what to tell them, what not to tell them. But until and unless you're sure that this is good for you, I think you should be pretty honest with your parents. Obviously, it depends from background to background. But yeah, I would say they're always supportive, but they're always more risk mitigating. So they would not like you to go away from the standard path because that is very anxiety driven for them. So yeah.
Okay. So, in the start, you said you do what you love, right? If you really want to do something, you would do that regardless of what other people would say, or if your parents would allow it, you would do it on your own without telling them sometimes, because it is how it is. You need to be a bit of, it's there's nothing wrong in it, right? But there are a lot of people that I have had conversations with who always say, instead of doing what you love, you need to do what you're supposed to do. So if I love X, right, but I know if I pursue this with my whole heart, people are not going to support it, might not work, or it might not pay me that well. I might be happy, but there are so many other cons that might happen, right? Instead, I'm supposed to do this. I don't really want to do this. I wouldn't mind it, but I don't really want to do. But then there are a lot of pros rather than cons, for good money, good support from everyone and everything else. So, what do you think? Should you do what you love, or should you do what you're supposed to do?
I would say the best combination of what you love and what you should do is to try to understand why you should love what you're going to do, right? Say it's a hard task, say it's a sales role, right? Something that's very monotonous. It's just pick up the call, have the same format. Maybe if you're better at sales, understand your like the person you're selling it to, and then customize it for them, right? It's a boring process, but if you break it down and you make yourself understand why there is a beauty to it. Again, I'm someone who tries to find the beauty in everything. I try to see how it could connect with everything else and what kind of value it could give me later down the line. So I tend to always find a way to love the thing that I'm doing at the present moment, and it's always interconnected. So I don't really have that problem that much. But one place where I do face that problem is, assume academics, right? So if your comprehensive exams are coming and you feel like the payoff isn't really that much, if you network better or if you get better opportunities and you actually have proof of work to show that you're really good at it, why would I spend my time just increasing my CGPA by you know, one degree or whatever, right? So then it becomes a little bit of a steadfast problem. I would not say I'm an expert at it. I'm still building that up. But at some points of time, I think you just need to shut your brain off, because I've dealt with a lot of people and I myself have been in a place where you tend to think way too much and not do enough. So you need to be smart enough to realize that you need to turn your brain off sometimes and just do the work. So when you know that there's 100% necessity of doing something and you're not able to convince yourself to love the process, you need to shut your brain off and do that, because you can't continue along the line by just loving the process. But that's the idealistic view. If you don't love what you do, you're not going to be the best at it. So as you do what you're supposed to do, you should try and bring those two parts together and try to love the process.
So you must try to balance everything.
I would not say balance. I would say try to rewire your brain into understanding why what you should do is something that you can also love. So that is a very important thing that I personally, I think, have dived deeper into, and I tend to like whatever I do at whatever point of time, because I convince myself that yeah, this is really exciting, at least for that point of time.
Okay. So, when you sent me your website and when I went through your website, it opens and closes with a quote of Bhagavad Gita, right? Which you dedicate to your grandfather. So it made me really curious because I wasn't expecting something like that, right? So when I saw that, I paused for a moment, I saw it, and then I was wondering how was your or is your relationship with your grandfather, and how much has he helped you to be what you are today?
I would say anything that I say right now would be a snippet of what how much contribution he's had in my life, because obviously my parents have had a massive, monumental contribution in my life. I would not be here without them, but my grandfather has shaped my spiritual side, made me understand how to be humble in moments, made me understand that you're just luckier than someone else who's in a worse position than you. So, really appreciate that. Take that as a sign of gratitude, thank God for it, and move forward in life, right? So, he's really spiritual. He believes in Hinduism to a huge degree. I was, every year I go to my village. We have a very religious Durga Puja in Odisha, in a town called Ulandu. So it's a great process. Every year we go there, we get connected with the ground reality, right? Something that you don't really get to see in a bubble like Bangalore, where I've been born and raised. So hearing religious stories, spiritual stories, understanding the values that come from it, right? The messages, the deeper messages that are not directly communicated, but something that sits in your brain and it sediments over time. That is something that I've picked up from my grandfather. He has been a massive source of inspiration for me. Someone who's helped out the entirety of, I would say, the east region of India to get to help in blindness, to serve them for nothing, for no costs. He's helped out a lot of people without them knowing that they've helped him out. And that's something that I really value. In fact, one of this is really deep, but my surname, Amitesh Das, Das essentially means service, and that's something that he's lived by. Serving people, because I think that's one thing that we are put on earth for. As long as you're serving someone and giving back value, you've done the right thing. So I think that's something I'm driven by. So when someone asks me my purpose, I think it's just giving back more than you've taken in. So right now, obviously, I'm building on that. I'm very young, but that's something that I look forward to doing. So a lot from my grandfather, a lot.
That's a wonderful way to think about, um the grandfather is really a great person, man. I have to give it to you. Right. So moving towards J, let's talk J because that is like the main. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm an engineer myself. I've cracked J myself. I won't say I've cracked, but yeah, I have given J myself, and yeah, it was hell of a time. So you got 99.31 percentile in your JEE examinations, right? How was the preparation for it? Was it on the very extreme, or was it relaxed? Were you taking it easy? How was it? Because we all expect, if you want to get a percentile like that, right, you have to give up everything, study for what, 14 hours a day, and just study, put yourself all into it. Was it the same for you, or was it a bit different? Was it something expected?
I have a very interesting take because I've seen things from a very different viewpoint from the average person in at least their JE preparation. I think this is a very true statement that you will always be dependent on your worldview. Now, I'll go deeper into that, right? I was put in a class of perspective geniuses in India at that point of time. The average All India rank of the people exiting that batch was around 300, right? So if you put yourself in a really good room, if you put yourself around people who are doing amazing, right? There's two ways of looking at it. In my class, I was probably one of the worst performing individuals, which was very demotivating at that point of time. But it was also very motivating post that because I realized how much effort someone is willing to put, right? It showed me what the creme de la creme is doing, right? And I was at the creme de la creme. I still think possibly I am there, but yeah, I was working towards JE from a very young age.
So creme de la creme.
Like the top 0.01% in the entire competition route, right? So these guys are people who won the like I have a really close friend, Said Avneet, if you may. I don't know if you all know about him, but he got India a silver medal in the astronomy Olympiad. So we're talking about people like that, the guys who come on the bus posters, the guys who get like double digit ranks, and I was surrounded with people like them. Unfortunately, 11th and 12th was a hard time for me because I'm someone who likes to do a lot. I'm an artist. I've made a lot of paintings. I like to sing sometimes. I like to do whatever comes, right? I like to read. I like to build stuff. Sports, without sports, I'm not the person I am, right? And when you're locked into a room, not locked into a room, but locked into an atmosphere where you're supposed to just study for, say, an 18-hour stint, or else you're going to, lag behind the others, it's not really an ideal condition for me, which is a weakness that I figured out pretty early on into my 11th and 12th. And I didn't give up. I continued trying, but again, it became something that I didn't love to do, which led to maybe me not performing to the best of my degrees, but was very interesting. In fact, this was a very funny instance when I joined my batch in 11th. This was right after the COVID time. We had one of our professors coming to us and giving us a lecture on bete under 100 rank AIR to ho jayega, under 10 target karna, right? For a kid in 11th grade, that is something that can be taken as motivation, but something that can also be taken as immense pressure because you're competing with what, 15 lakh students, and the assumption is that you're easily going to be under 100 AIR rank. And you're competing with people who are at least 10,000 people who are putting in days and nights together just to be in that same pedestal. So that was something that unfortunately I was not in the right headspace, and I didn't love the process at that point of time. So again, I would say subjectively, or if you keep it separately from everything, 99.31 percentile is not bad. It is really good, right? But in my batch, it was
Okay, it does you cannot use the word not bad. It is, you need to use something like excellent or like wonderful or something. Man. Come on.
But again, it's perspective. That's what I'm saying, right? Life is about perspectives. That's the first statement I started with. Even though a person in the IIT Bombay computer science is competing with everybody else in that batch, and the lowest performer there is going to see that small pond of people and assume that he's not doing well in life. Because when you actually zoom out, right, you will be like, I am in one of the best IITs in the best branch, and I'm one of the most talented students out of the lot. So when I was in that space, it felt like I was not really performing to my degree. But when you put yourself out there again, when you subject like look at it objectively, 99.31 percentile is not an easy thing to do. It's pretty good. So yeah, it was tough. It was really tough. But then towards the end of 11, towards the end of 12th, I really didn't have the motivation to push through. I wanted to understand where I could create the most value. I wanted to join a college where I would enjoy my time, while also loving the learning process. And I think I did a really good decision by joining BITS Goa.
Okay, keeping that in mind, there's this one interesting thing I want to talk about. You did a YC pitch at 16 years old, at 16 years of age, right? Now, students in 16 years of when they are 16 years old, I used to struggle with which series do I watch, or what video do I make next and everything. And you were there giving YC pitches, which is not a small deal. It's, of course, it's a very big deal, right? That too at a young age. How did that happen? How did that, like, what is the story towards it?
Okay, this is a very important thing that I want to tell everyone, right? Barriers are set by humans based on social norms and essentially don't get weighed off by that. Like when someone told me that the math Olympiads are really, really hard to crack, right? I didn't believe it because I'd already passed a few rounds of it. And it was not a mental stigma that had set into my head, right? I would say that's because I entered the game too early, maybe. But yeah, that's a good thing, right? If you don't think something's tough, there's a higher chance that you will succeed at it. When I applied to YC, I didn't think it was something that was very, very impressive. It was just that it was the most public thing that was out there in the sense if you search for how do I build my own startup, what is the best brand name there? What's the IIT equivalent to startups, right? Essentially, for the Indian audience. It's Y Combinator. And I didn't know the competition, I didn't know what is there. It was just marketed as if you want to build something great and want to change lives, you apply to YC. And that's all I thought about. And I applied to Y Combinator. I applied with the idea that we figured out the more we read into machine learning, we tried to read research papers. Obviously, we didn't understand it at depth because we were just 16, but we understood some use cases that could come out of it. Like we started working on embedded watermarking. Mainly, I was working on it and trying to figure out, oh, there's going to be AI generated videos down the line because that's an obvious take, right? Sora is going to come in. Midjourney was just starting off. Sora was a very early video generation platform, and we figured out that watermarking is going to be really important because digital IP will be one of the next big things, right? Who owns what content? If say you're creating a Justin Bieber music video without getting his consent, then what's going to happen there? How will people identify if the real video or not? And this is back in 2022, so 4 years back. I would say it's not such an easy insight to draw, but the hypothesis was AI generated videos are going to get really, really good. Watermarking, like just surface level watermarking, is pretty easy to remove, right? So, how do you put it into the system itself so that no matter what kind of modifications you do, you can't remove the watermark? Like, at least the system processor can figure it out. So, that's what something that we worked on. We figured out what Gaussian noise is, tried to figure out what the reverse diffusion process is, how video generation models work, understanding whether there is a product market fit for this. And at a very early stage, we understood that in the future there will be. And it is still early in 2026. It is still early for something like this. It's still, I would say, 2 years off. And the major reason why we thought we would get product market fit is Elon Musk was trying to acquire Twitter after that, right? And we figured out that he was very against the fact that bots are a major thing on Twitter and he wanted real content. So, understanding how to segment or essentially parse between real content and fake content is a major, major addition down the line. And according to the current scenario, YouTube videos, Instagram videos that are made with AI are tagged and then they're also watermarked. In fact, if you look at it, OpenAI, I think 1 year ago, implemented something really, really similar along the lines of Gaussian noise, so on and so forth. So it was really interesting. Like I've worked on a few ideas that have hit the market. Obviously, I have not taken it there, but at least the insight or the intuition behind them have worked out really well. Now, why did I go to Y Combinator? Premature decision. Because why not? Right? Drive it by a why not? So that's why we went to them. It was interesting, got past the first two rounds. And the last round, it was a little bit of a you're too young, you don't have technical expertise, and you wouldn't leave university or you wouldn't leave your 11th and 12th for this. So that was one of the reasons. And obviously, I don't think I would have been able to make anything substantial at that point of time because I didn't know how to file for a patent. I didn't know what to do in circumstances like these. And there's a lot of learning. I think yeah, go on.
If you had an idea and you knew that it was gonna be a big thing, and right now it is actually going to be a big thing. It is like, I'd say, late beginner stages. It might get into the intermediate stage soon, by the speed that AI is developing. You could have taken help from someone, you could have find a partner, you could have done something to do, like, go ahead with that idea, right?
Yeah.
Why did you say
Now,
decide to do it?
Now, why didn't I do it? Is because I didn't have awareness. I didn't even know how to go looking for a co-founder. Why would someone, like, just in hindsight, right? If I were to look at a 16-year-old today, obviously I would look at it from a different point of view because I know people are really capable at a young age. But if an average Indian or an average person, no, it's not about that. It's like I wouldn't place a bet on somebody. If I have a really technical guy, if I'm a really technical guy, I would not possibly place a bet on a 16-year-old. And for that, I'm assuming that the 16-year-old approaches me because I'm not actively looking in the market to find someone with a brilliant idea at a very young age. Unfortunately, I think that's going to change down the line because I feel like the delta between experience and outcomes is reducing. I feel like there's a lot of young people who are creating massive outcomes, right? Even without, like, they're getting relevant experience in a short duration of time. But again, it's not about industrial experience that is maybe not so relevant in a specific field. So I feel that I did not have that much awareness, quite honestly. I didn't know who to reach out to, I didn't know what to do. And I was doing all of this pretty much in stealth because if I told anyone that I'm doing all of this, I would either be laughed at or I would be looked at as kuch nahi hone wala, right? So again, it's all done in silent work, and unfortunately, when you do things silently, you don't really get the entire scope. You'll never get the entire scope, but it was very limited, and I've learned a lot from it. So like nothing negative, but yeah.
So right now, I guess I'm not really sure about it. I was reading about it the other day, but OpenAI or like they have right now Gemini, OpenAI, they have some kind of an ID embedded into the video somewhere. I don't know the term of it, but yeah, so that can be used by certain detectors to detect if the video is AI or not, right? And I guess you had mentioned that um OpenAI, after 2 years of your YC pitch and everything, OpenAI implemented the same idea in their videos and their AI generated stuff.
Not the exact same idea, but overall, I would not say that. Yeah, but it was smart in the sense what we thought of was a real problem. Obviously, because it was a real problem, it had to be implemented down the line. I'm really happy that the proof of concept worked, right? It gives me some more backing and some more confidence in my intuitive abilities of understanding a space at a very young age. Like
That
this,
happened. It was like I got this idea
not
first,
really.
but then now, okay, I'll have to miss out on this.
I feel like your mental space is something that needs to be protected really well. I think living a life in a pessimistic point of view doesn't really help. Obviously, I had a few thoughts, as in like, oh, I could have built this. I could have possibly have had an acquisition or maybe sell my patents or get royalty on something like this. But at the end of the day, I try to live my life from an abundance mindset. The more I learn, the more I enter the field, the more exposure I get, the better opportunities I'll get, right? Down the line. So holding any type of pessimism takes up my mental space and that will stop me from operating at the best level that I can. So no hard feelings, no nothing. Because at the end of the day, these are great companies that are trying to create a difference, at least, I hope. So as long as it's being used in the right way, I don't have any problem.
So, when you went, like all the experience, when you got all the experience of you pitching to the YCs and everything, what did it make you realize about what investors really look for in a person, in a founder, as compared to what us founders we think that an investor looks in us?
There's a lot of small things. One thing that I would really like to mention is that if you're building something, there needs to be really good founder fit. Now, what I mean by founder fit is, again, little more background. I've helped a lot of startups based out of Bangalore, a few in BITS Goa, some here, some there, pitching themselves, right? These are companies that are trying to raise millions of dollars, companies that have raised millions of dollars, companies trying to get an acquisition, so on and so forth. And I've interacted with a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of angel investors. In fact, sometimes I even help them source deals and all of that, right? So one major thing that they look at, so not only from the YC perspective, but also from the VC perspective, because it depends on stage to stage. Like if it's a pre-seed round, what they're looking for is betting on the founder itself, right? Completely betting on the founder and seeing if the founder has a fit in the industry. Now, if I were to come tomorrow and say I'm going to build something in the space realm, right, in the space sector, and I don't know the ABCs of how like anything works in the astronomy realm, like who to contact, what distribution to get, and I just have a vision ki, oh my god, I'm going to take us to Jupiter per se, even though it doesn't have any solid mass to land on, right? That's stupidity in my opinion, right? A strong word, stupidity, because there's no founder fit. I'm not from that realm. It's pretty hard to find founder fit at a young age. I would say at 20, a lot of people will ask you questions as to what expertise do you have, where do you think you can possibly provide value. But one thing that I would say to every young person out there is that you have two massive, massive upper hands on everybody else who pitches a point of experience to you. You have a lot of time on your hands and you have a really fast adapting brain because you can capture knowledge at a pace much, much, much faster than people who are in their 30s or 40s. So if you put yourself in the right places, in the right rooms, and you align yourself in the right way, I think there's a lot of scope and you have a lot of time. So those are two advantages. I think I am someone who is still trying to develop depth in a domain, but I feel like these are two important things. First thing is founder fit, right? And second thing is understanding world dynamics. Now, what I mean by world dynamics is essentially being grounded to reality, understanding which sector affects which sector in what way, and having an overall good view of the entire space, right? Now, I'm not talking about the entire global geopolitical space because that's way too much information for you to digest. But if I want to enter, say, the AI space, right? I should know all the big players that are trying to enter the space, where they're building, what are their internal motives behind doing what they're doing, what are the small companies that are trying to build, where are they trying to build to. Like after this, they won't be able to because it's too much operational capex, or say they won't be able to structure their team in a way. There's too much bureaucracy. So that's where I enter. Right? Understanding the dynamics in a specific sector helps a lot. Once I know that a founder understands the dynamics and is grounded to reality, I would possibly put a bet on them because they know when to pivot at the right point of time. They won't stick to an idea just because they believe it will work. They need to have a reasoning behind why they believe it will work. And founder fit is very important. Because if I'm placing a bet on someone, I need to know that these guys know how to do what they're going to do. And if I don't have that assurance, it's going to be very hard for someone to believe in me. So that's something that's really important. The first point is pretty hard to work on, but the second point is something that I think a lot of people can work on from a very young age and try to at least understand the space. They won't be able to understand it immediately off the bat, but at least if you make an effort, you'll be able to understand it down the line. I am also still in that process, but this is information and like really good advice I've gotten from unicorn founders, people who are CEOs of massive companies, managing directors at like the biggest MNCs of the world. So I feel like this is really valuable advice coming from a second person, but like also refined and essentially, you know, gotten through to me.
Okay. Damn, that's wonderful. I agree with everything you said. And there were some points that actually forced me to think about, there are so many small things that we don't notice. There are so many small things that goes unnoticed. And if we start fixing all those small things, eventually the bigger things, the bigger problems get solved. So that's wonderful. That this segment would be a very good segment for the viewers who are watching to understand when understand different aspects about life, I'd say. Right. So if let's say if you were given a chance to go back in time and do the pitch it differently today, right? What different would you do?
To answer that question, I'll have to give it thought. I think I live by this one principle that's no regrets. Being present in the present is something that I value way too much, and I think that's something everyone should value. And having no regrets helps a lot in that perspective. But if I were to change anything, I would say I would build more awareness, try to get to know the space more, maybe associate myself with people with a lot of experience, someone who could have guided me in a much better way. But quite honestly, I think that's something that built me. I wouldn't be where I am today if I did not fail in that YC pitch or if I did not get the criticism I got at that point of time. And I think every small thing has butterfly effects down in the line. And I think the more shots you take at goal, the faster your learnings and the better you get as a person. There's more life experience compacted into a short period of time.
Okay, so here I can see that you have done TEDx, VC teams, consulting, GTM work and research, right? All of this before the second year, which is exceptional, I'd say. But then it also makes me think that are you building a diverse portfolio? Are you trying to experience everything, or are you trying to find that one perfect fit that you have not found yet?
Okay. Coming to all of this, I think when you're starting off in your career, I would say till 24, you have a very not plastic mind. By that I mean it's capable of doing a lot of things at the same point of time and trying to understand how everything ties into everything, right? Drawing tangents between topics. Now I feel like my first year, this is an interesting point, I joined 18 societies, 18 clubs. I think I was the person who got into the maximum number of clubs, societies, departments, organizations, whatever you can say, right? And then exactly 100%. It's about trying to get into the best rooms, trying to understand, get motivated by the best people, trying to build the best networks, maybe helping them out, maybe them helping you out, so on and so forth. So I tried to maximize because once you get into, say, 18 to 20 clubs, then you can cut down from it, right? So that was my thought process. So joined a lot of these clubs. Did obviously you have limited. You have 24 hours in a day, so you have to make really good decisions, right? Where am I going to put my time? What's important? How is this going to help me? And be very rational about it. I think it causes some problems. Maybe some clubs might not, mess with it that much. They'll be like, oh, why are you not contributing here? So then maybe you'll have to cut it down. So at the end of the day, towards my second year, I end up with only 5 clubs, which is still quite a lot, right? And then I had meaningful contributions in the ones that I really had, like I felt like my value I would really help a lot. So I would say being in all of these clubs is pretty impressive, I would say. But they're also very correlated. Like getting into one club also means that you have the right skill sets to get into almost every other club, right? So getting into the art club, there are some diverse points, right? Getting into the art club like Kala was about how well you can paint or how artistic your mind is. Getting into the consulting club was about how articulate your thoughts are, understanding where you would segment, what you would segment, understanding market conditions, understanding how you would give a case breakdown, being really good at guesstimates, so on and so forth. Getting into TEDx was about being exceptional at soft skills, right? Understanding people, having a really good team. Building your own club was a whole other experience, right? Building your own ecosystem from scratch in first year, along with a few of my friends who I wouldn't be able to do it without, is again something massive. So I think all of this shaped me, right? Doing all of this by the end of second year, again, I would say is pretty impressive. But again, when you look back in time, I think if you live in reminiscence, you're going to slow yourself down. So I do recognize that this is pretty impressive. But yeah, there's a lot more to come, or at least I hope so.
Well, this is the one question that I ask to all the guests that come to my podcast, right? And by listening to what you say, I guess this is the right time to ask this question. Do you believe in speed when it comes to get things done? Or do you believe? The question is, do you believe in getting things done quickly, or do you believe in getting things done perfectly even if it takes time?
I believe speed is a massive, massive, massive factor. I think perfection becomes a form of an excuse down the line, where I think there's a very fine line. If you know how to deal with it, then deal with it. But I think there's only a very small fraction of people who know where to stop. Right? I feel like majority of people use that as a form of procrastination, a form of not doing anything, and then saying that I'm a perfectionist. But I feel like people who just focus on speed and execution and hitting, and you just hit the same surface again and again and again. Even if you don't hit the right spot, if you hit a cluster of spots near it, you're still going to break the door, right? But if you believe that, oh, it's only one punch, and you do never take that punch, then it's wrong. But I also feel like there's a line in the middle where there's this very famous saying, I think you would have come across it previously, and a lot of our viewers also would have come across it, is that you sharpen the axe until it's sharp enough so that you can cut it at one go. But I feel like a lot of people use this specific statement in the wrong way, understand it in the wrong way. So I don't think people are capable of understanding it in the right way. So I would say speed is the best way of going about it, because if you just keep executing, executing, executing without a massive risk attached to it, you will get somewhere. And that's the overhaul.
With like until and unless there is no massive risk attached to it, I don't think so. You need to be perfect at everything because nobody is perfect at the start. You get perfect along the way. You can never be perfect at the start. If you want to be perfect at the start, and if your goal is if I do something, I'm gonna do it perfectly, otherwise I'm not gonna do it, you'll end up doing nothing and you'll end up just wasting your time because it gives you dopamine rush, right? When you say to yourself that I want to be perfect, it gives you the dopamine rush ki, हाँ, okay, I want to do something, but then in reality, nothing's getting done, right? So I agree with that. So Amitesh, अब क्या चल रहा है? What's going on right now? What are you building? What are you doing right now?
Right. Right now, I've just finished my second year, going into my third year. It's our summer break. So, currently working and helping out a few startups understanding the space better. Recently got contacted by a brilliant individual, and he's based out of San Francisco. We're trying to build a venture studio per se, where there's these really cool companies that are backed by entrepreneurs first, backed by residency, backed by the likes of amazing programs, right? And these guys are try building at the bleeding edge, right? Something along the lines of self-correcting agents, something along the lines of super personalized medicine, something along the lines of agents that are deployed on a canvas that can do parallel computing at a massive scale, and a lot of deep tech startups too, right? So currently it's that being I'm trying to be at the edge of technology because I feel like this is where opportunity lies. Building something of value. I feel like understanding operational capabilities, talking to great people is something that gives you a massive edge in life. So almost every single day, I have 2 to 3 meetings with some of the most amazing people I would never believe I could talk to at an age of 20. Some people who I would consider way out of my league. In fact, I have this is a really cool thing that I would love to show. I have a book signed by Bill Gates where he wrote down my name, and that was one of my biggest inspirations, right? So I don't believe anything's impossible. You have something in your mind, maybe meeting Sam Altman, maybe even advising Sam Altman one day, right, in some specific domain. I think your dreams should never fall short. So right now I'm experiencing that to some degree, obviously at a very small degree, setting up meetings with some partners at amazing firms, learning from them, maybe the CEO of some of the biggest organizations ever, right? Unicorn companies, speaking to people who have depth of knowledge to a degree that is unfathomable. So this is what my current day looks like. Really, really exciting. I find it really, really exciting. Talking to great people, helping out other individuals, finding some great people around my age group, people who are 20, 21, 19, 18, maybe up to the age of 24, building amazing things and creating like a community of us where we support each other because I don't feel like the support is still massive. Like I feel like people are still building in silos, and the main goal is to not build in silos and build a community so that if someone's building, it shouldn't be looked down upon, but something that is supported by everyone in the community. So right now, pretty busy, I would say, pretty busy doing a lot. But again, it's about taking shots at goal. So I hope that turns out in a good way down the line.
Damn. So you're starting a venture out of San Francisco, right? Um,
Yes.
can you tell me a bit more about it? What is it exactly, and like how it works?
How it works. Okay. So I am pretty much very into the entrepreneurial space. So any major event that happens in Bangalore in entrepreneurship, anything that happens in BITS Goa regarding entrepreneurship, anybody who is in a pretty young age who wants some advice regarding entrepreneurship, normally find me, right? And this guy, I found him and he reached out to me and we started communicating a lot. We started discussing ideas, having a few weekly meets, trying to push each other along the process, trying to essentially, just be the better versions of, try to push ourselves as far as possible, right? And then we discussed an idea, and one day he randomly calls me and he's like, Amitesh, I have a crazy idea, right? We got to work on something insane. And we sit down with the idea. The idea is essentially taking the bleeding edge because this is a very real scenario that's happened across multiple decades. Anything that's being built in the US ends up being replicated in markets like India and other countries, right? And it tends to work out. Like if you look at all the Barbie founders that are there, people who have gone abroad, come back to India and built similar concepts, they've mostly been successful. Now, our thesis is that these companies are working on the bleeding edge. They're around 2 months. If you're talking about the AI space, they're 2 months ahead or maybe 1 month ahead of the Indian landscape. And if you're working with these guys and you can build or bring this technology or this product back to India and give it to the right people, we can build an application layer on top of it or essentially get them a market where they can function really well, right? It's benefiting us, it's benefiting them. So this is the initial thesis. I feel like as the number of portfolio companies keep increasing, a venture studio is more of like a founding team for hire. So we help out the startups, say doing GTM in India, maybe figuring out marketing, maybe figuring out sales, maybe the tech part, hiring some of the best talent. And then down the line, as the number of portfolio companies increase, we can't be this hands on. So the plans are to change it into a VC firm. Again, there's massive risk. There's a very good chance of it failing. We're very aware of that. And I feel like there is nothing without failure, right? You would never enjoy the process if there's no chance of it failing. I truly believe that. So let's see how it goes. I think it's really exciting. But I feel like the allure normally holds more weight than the actual tasks. So I'm trying to put the allure away from the work that needs to be done because, quite honestly, it's an operational nightmare understanding the insider dynamics, how a VC firm functions, what kind of politics might come into the play, how you set up distribution channels, how there are three entities that set up a VC firm essentially. How do we transform an operational arm in India? There's a lot of very specific questions that even getting answers for on a place, a lot of compliance, technicalities, legal stuff that we have to deal with, right? So it's something there's no standard playbook for this. There is no standard playbook. For a 20-year-old entering a space where he wants to be a partner and a co-founder of something like a venture studio or a venture capital firm is pretty unheard of. There's no standard playbook. So pretty exciting times, pretty interesting. But at the end of the day, the goal is to create an impact, make a change. If we fail along these lines, I think I'll still continue. I think my ambition will not die out. I will try to make a massive stroke, a massive stride in the right direction. But again, it's in the hands of God. I truly believe that. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But yeah, again, it's in His hands.
How is your relationship with God?
I am a believer of God. I really believe in spiritualism. I think religion sometimes, again, I feel like I'm 20. I really don't understand the space, and me saying anything that is very polarizing is immature. But I will say this: I believe that spiritualism and having faith in something makes your life very easy, right? It normally removes a lot of anxiety, a lot of doubt. And one simple theory that I believe is there's been a lot of people. I think it's very pretentious to believe that you're smarter than everyone else who has been around on this earth and really believes in the concept of God. Because I feel like if it's existed over thousands of years, right, there has to be some amount of truth to it. Or even if it is a figment of our imagination, it is something that helps society, or else it would have been eradicated away, right? So I think I am humble enough to accept the fact that I don't understand everything. And I feel like even if I start doubting God, I will end up believing in God again because all the people who I've seen enter the atheist, like not believing in God route, end up at the end of the day believing back in God. I might be completely wrong about this, but I feel like I function better believing in God. And I think that it's very beautiful when you believe in a higher entity. And it's helped me out so far and it's helped my family out so far. So yeah, my relationship with God is pretty good. And in fact, I think he's someone who's always there by my side. He's a rock behind me, essentially.
That's a really great way to see it, and I was happy to hear because your vision towards God, your belief toward God, is similar to what I believe in, right? I believe in the similar thing that you just now said, and I have this another belief that since humans have existed since what centuries now, right? So if God created humans and God wanted humans to know who God is, what God is, he would have had a big stone with carvings of his photos and his name and everything on the big stone for us to see, and it would have been a big monument. So, if God wanted us to know who God is, he would have let us know way, way, way before, right? The reason why we don't know exactly what God is, who is God, is because there are some things in this world that is beyond human understanding, and there are some things that humans shouldn't understand. There are some things that you don't want to understand because that's how it is, right? And yeah, so you should learn to respect that boundary. You should learn to respect that privacy. Not everything is meant for us to be understood and conquered. So yeah, there are some things which are beyond human understandings, and it should remain beyond humans understandings, right? So yeah, that is one of my belief. Well, moving on. Okay. Now let me ask you this one question, right? So, what is your dream? What is Amitesh's dream? Now, not the one that someone would put on as LinkedIn, or not the one that someone would say in a very formal way. But what is your actual dream? What is like something that you want to do? Can be anything, can be completely different, can be exactly different from the route you are on right now. What is that one final goal?
I feel like there are some goals that uh there are obviously short term goals, some long term goals, a massive vision. One of my core things that I want to fix is the Indian football system, right? I feel like Indian football is not at a place where it should be, where it ever should be. And I feel like that's something that has to change. Again, this is not a lifetime goal of mine, but I feel like if I can contribute to that in any way, shape, or form, I would love to do that. And I am taking active steps to try and help out on that front, reaching out to AIFF, reaching out to the ISL, reaching out to coaches here, reaching out to FIFA, right? Setting up meetings with them, trying to understand how much politics is being played here. Again, I have very subtle understanding of it, but my love for football, love for sports, and understanding of how important things like these are is at least good enough to know that, yeah, it's something that cannot be taken as lightly as it is being taken right now, right? Apart from that, my major vision is to set up a think tank of sorts where I like if I think this is the coolest vision that I have as of now. I think it might change down the line. But if you can orchestrate and be a mentor to tens of startups that end up really creating value in the world, and they're your students per se, right? Like imagine you're the professor of Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, right? This is too out of the world, but I would love to be in a place like that's the vision. Like if I can take my learnings and pass it on to people and they take that and go 10 steps ahead, like leave me in the dust, right? I would be very happy. I would be really happy because I feel like being a professor is something, or being someone who's a mentor or a teacher, someone who passes on information, is something of massive value, right? People don't understand how important that is. People don't put respect on it. Your professors, your teachers, the people you learn from on a daily basis, your parents per se, right? You learned everything from them per se, is so important because every generation doesn't start from ground zero. If they did start from ground zero, we would never be where we are. It's always about the transfer of information, and I feel like that transfer is something that I would really love to contribute to. So my major vision is building a think tank where I am a mentor to the next big leaps in humanity, right? And that's the broad vision. I want to give back to society, then probably teach people, right? Give all the information I've gotten, all the resources I've gotten distributed among people, and make sure that the world prospers down the line. Again, very idealistic, but I feel like if you a person doesn't really have a massive dream, why you live it? So yeah.
It doesn't there are no taxes on dreaming big. So yeah. Well, that was wonderful, man. I really hope all your dreams come true and you end up doing everything that you want to do, man. Um, okay, what is this? Let me just clear this. What is this one thing that people see on your portfolio and they often get it wrong? Can be like they get it completely wrong about who you are. What is this one thing that you think is?
I think everybody is entitled to their own opinions. I feel like a lot of people look at me and think, maybe think that this guy doesn't know what he's doing, which may be completely right, right? They're entitled to their own opinions, but I have a
To be honest with you, I don't think so. Someone would look at your portfolio and be like, I don't think so. This guy doesn't know what he's doing because looking at what all you have done, you definitely know what you're on doing, right?
yeah. No, but a lot of people have a differing opinion where they think, oh, this guy's spreading a little bit too thin, right? He's done, say, the breadth is really well covered. In fact, even I believe in this, right? Whoever I mentor or whoever I give advice to, I keep mentioning that the T structure is really important. Your initial phases of life are developed in breadth, right? So the more breadth you have, the better you're going to perform down the road. But as you grow older and older and the more experience you get, you should figure out which tangents you want to dive deeper into, right? So that's where you build your wedges, right? Or your verticals. So majorly a T structure is idealistic where you have a lot of breadth and you decide one specific field where you want to go deep down into. But I also feel like there could be three different fields. I feel like a lot of people would optimize for depth pretty early on. I feel like I would optimize for depth maybe relatively later. So currently I'm exploring breadth to a degree, I would say much better than other people. But again, a lot of people would consider that as a con, something that would make them consider that, oh no, this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. I met it from that perspective, but yeah, I also see what you're saying. So I feel like a lot of people have differing opinions, but I'm not really like it's always along these lines, in my opinion.
Understood. Tell me, okay, let's talk about offside for a bit. Right, I was supposed to talk about it a bit before, but then I was like so much into the conversation, I completely forgot about it. Let's talk about offside. So, offside is something related to sports, right? As far as I know, what is it, and how did that idea come across for you to start in bits?
Yes, so this was a funny idea. It was not at all prompted. I think the best ideas come out of nowhere. So I have a friend called Bruhan Tejataya. He really loves football. We lived in the same wing in our hostel, DH3 hostel in Ditsua. And one day he just comes to my room at maybe at night. I don't really remember the details. DH3. So D hostel 3.
So there's this one thing, right? I've been to Bits for the event. What was the name? I forgot. Waves, yeah. So there is this one canteen which is considered as the best canteen in Bits. Some P3 or something.
Uh D3? Wait. You're talking about messes? There's DH, there's about messes, yeah. So there's AMS, AMS, CMS, DMS. AMS is the best in my opinion. AMS is the best in my opinion. Again, it depends on person to person. AMS by far, like 100%, right? But again, coming to the point, so then he randomly pulls up to my room and he's like, I really want to play football, but like there's not enough of a cluster of people to play football with. If you have to play football, even if you're playing a 5v5, right, you need at least 10 people to show up, or else you can't really play a game. So it was a massive issue, right? Massive issue in the sense people are not getting to play the game that they love. And majority of sports are team sports. You look at basketball, you look at cricket, you look at football. These are three of the biggest sports in India. And if you don't have people to play with, you can't, right? And in our university, there are quite a lot of people, and our sports teams are really competitive. So in our first year, we had our football team selections. So it's called FC, BITS FC. And we had more than 500 applicants who ran a 3K in under 15 minutes. And there were 500 applicants who applied post that. So they all had a time of under 15 minutes 3K, which is decent, pretty decent. So that means these are serious candidates who really want to play football, right? Obviously, you're in an engineering college, there's going to be a lot of jugaad. Some people gave their phones to one jogger who ran with six phones to do all of their rounds. But again, there was an interest, right? You talk about an engineering college, there's going to be stuff like this. So when I got to know about these numbers, right, there was a very interesting product market fit, I would say, where the number of people who got selected into the team were only three from first year, whereas there were 500-ish people applying. And the total number of people across all batches that got selected, if I'm not wrong, is around six, right? So there's a massive gap. There's a really massive gap. And at least 200 of them are really serious and they would love to play football. And I was a pretty social person. I am still a pretty social person in college. So I decided that let's bring a community together. So a few people came to my room and then I said, Chalo, let's make it happen. Let's make a league. Right? It seemed like a joke because if someone comes to your room and they're like, I want to play football, and then you say, okay, let's make a league, it's going to be considered a joke, which a lot of people did consider a joke. In fact, if you go and talk to a few of my friends or a few of the people in my batch, they'll be like, yeah, this guy came up with an idea, he put it on the group chat, and no one thought it's going to happen. Like, no one thought anything would come out of it. Because if anybody was to make a difference, it would probably be a fourth year or a third year student who has good campus culture all around, so on and so forth, and some depth on campus. But then I'm like, that's not going to stop me. That's not going to stop us. So then our team went forward. We held an auction in our night canteen at night, right? We got permissions to essentially host an auction there. We got more than 300 people showing up. With like, we sent out invites, did as much jugaad as possible to get light permissions because no night lights are not allowed. Like, you're not allowed to keep the floodlights on at night after a specific time. I had to go and sit outside. Yeah, initially there were no permissions for that. So I had to go and I had to build not build the infrastructure, but get the compliance right. Right. So convincing the sports board, convincing the professors, convincing the student welfare division, so on and so forth, making all of these parties adhere with the vision to make at least the first edition happen. And quite honestly, it is a really, really tough job. Like on the surface, things look really, really smooth because that's the beauty and the magic of what's supposed to happen. But it was really, really tough. So then the auction takes place in the D night canteen. We make a reel out of it. Goes goes. I wouldn't say viral, but on campus it was a massive thing. 10,000 views. A lot of people talking about it the next day. Our photography team coming by without a single invite. Our film team that makes documentaries coming by for the auction, making videos of all of this, right? Selecting the captains itself was a procedure, making 200 to 300 people register for the league in season one out of nowhere was pretty impressive. Season one came by, we got sponsored by Red Bull, an in kind deal. We had people winning the matches have free Red Bull, got really good media pictures out, started on the sponsorship front, did a lot more, and then built an infrastructure around all of this, right? And really, really cool. Like one thing that really touched me is that when you're building something, when you see the real life impact of it, it's so cool. It's really hard to describe. So one day I was sitting on on in one of our food trucks, right, and just having my food, and little did I know that I would see tens, tens, 20s, 30s, 50-ish people walking towards the football field, unprecedented, to practice before game day, right? And this is actual, yeah, and this is actual real value, right? It's changing an entire ecosystem. It's building an ecosystem from scratch, changing people's dynamics, creating a culture, building friendships across maybe your PhD students, master students, your teaching assistants, people who grade you. In fact, in one of our labs, in one of our CS labs, there was a question about offside. So like crazy marketing, like marketing in terms of even evaluatives. In evaluatives, there's offside mentioned somewhere. In this paper, there's offside mentioned somewhere. Getting to the teaching assistant level, like making sure the entire campus knows, like using Jugaad to the best front you can possibly use.
How was the feeling? How did it feel? The whole college talking about it.
It's it is really, really, really cool. I think it can get to your head, but understanding that it's one small step and then working on top of it is really important. So then we scaled it up. We had a few other great people that helped scale it up. We joined another firm, like a firm as in we had another college club that we joined hands with to create multiple more leagues. So we built airball, the cricket league, power play, a badminton league, a table tennis league, and there were independent people who were coming up with all of these leagues, building it from scratch, right? Just beautiful to see. People who took my help, people who didn't take my help, but borrowed the infrastructure and they could make it happen. Like now there's a very good sports infrastructure on our campus, apart from just the fests that are there. And I think that's something that really benefits mental health, physical health, and is creating really massive value on campus. I'm pretty much not very hands-on now, and there's a lot of great people who've taken forth the initiative because I've gotten more busy on other fronts. But really impressive to see, like a really good team. In fact, I would love to thank publicly like the people who work with me. Rohan Pejita, he's my co-founder in Offside, and Rohan Agarwal, who it would be impossible to do it with. In fact, he's continuing the operations on that front. This guy was my media guy. Without him, impossible. And the rest of the team, really cool guys, people who worked through everything. All of them in first year, by the way, right? So mad impressive. People who had insane perseverance, but something that really, really, really created a value on campus and something that I'll carry throughout my life.
So do you all have student council in BITS Pilani? Do you have any plans on standing for like as a GS? It's called GS only, right?
So we have general secretaries in our second year, we have presidents in our third year. Interesting stuff. When the general secretary candidates form opened, I was asked by a lot of people to apply, right? But again, it's a risk to reward ratio, and I didn't really believe that there's as much to gain from it from my perspective. And I feel like I could have done a great job, but again, being selfish at the right points of time is really important. Understanding the value of your time. And I felt like it was not worth my time. Again, when the president uh, position opened up, the current general secretary normally becomes the president, and he was not applying. And he himself had messaged me. He's a close friend of mine. He had told me to apply for the process. But again, and a lot of people again came to me saying, Party, you should apply for the president role, which is considered one of the most powerful positions on our campus. But yeah, I didn't think it was, I don't think I would be able to devote so much time to it, not do justice to the position. And I feel like there's a lot of people who would do justice to the position to a much better degree. And also, I felt like it may not be the right amount of risk reward payoff for my career because, again, I have to look at myself at the end of the day.
Right. Amitesh, it was a wonderful conversation, man, with you. And it often it makes me feel very good to see BITS Pilani students doing so good in life. Before this, my first podcast was with a Bitsian. You'll call it a Bitsian only, right? Dhruv Payangle, Dhruva Payangle, and like I knew him since I guess I was in what fifth standard or lower. So yeah, we like lived in the same area, and yeah, it makes me very happy, right? I would love to ask one last question, right?
Okay.
See, you're building something for the long game, right? And during this process, I want to know what is your biggest fear? Like, I'm not talking about, let's say, I'm not talking about failing. I'm not talking about the market. I'm not talking about you losing motivation. But what is that one personal fear that still haunts you somewhere deep down? You can take your time.
That's a really interesting question. And I feel like anyone who is able to answer that question right off the bat should not enter the entrepreneurial space. Now, this this I feel right. I feel like if you have a massive fear, right, that you're not ready to cope with at any degree, I don't think you're ready to take up a challenge of that sort because entrepreneurship is by far, at least from what I believe, one of the toughest things you can do. There's no steady roadmap. There's no one who's going to, there's not a lot of people who can share your experience, right? So if you have one massive fear and you have a direct answer for this question, you probably aren't in the right headspace. Now, I might be completely wrong about it. I'm grateful that I don't have a direct answer to that. But if I were to dive deeper into that segment, right, understanding what is one of my massive fears, I would I would say maybe not living up to my potential. But again, that becomes one of your generic answers. I don't think I'll be able to give you a very good answer as of now. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing personally. But one thing that I'm really scared of, just give me some more time. Let me try to figure that out. Hmm. Yeah. One thing that I would say drives people at a very young age, and I consider myself also in the same problem do is FOMO, fear of missing out, right? So I would say when you get a lot of opportunities, even if you cut out 80% of it, we're hitting a volume game of like 20 opportunities a month. Even if you reject 90% of it, it's still like four opportunities. Like it's still a lot of opportunities, right? It's two opportunities that you have to take or leave, like really good opportunities. So I feel like as adopting the abundance mindset, I think if I fail to adopt the abundance mindset to the right degree, I have a fear of missing out, like a very big fear of missing out, right? That is a weakness. I think that is something that I am working on. Understanding that I hold also quite a lot of value and I bring a lot to the table. So there is a reason why people would collaborate with me. And obviously, at this point of time, it might not be as much as it would be 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. But one major fear would be fear of missing out, which I feel like is something that everybody who is very ambitious should work on. And I think you will get to a stage where FOMO will be one of your biggest problems. And there is a way to get out of it. And I would love to help anybody who's dealing with the FOMO problem. I've helped a lot of people with it. I'm helping myself out with it. Talking to some great people who have the abundance mindset, people who've made it in life really gets you more clarity on this. But yeah, I would say the answer to that question is FOMO.
Damn. Fear of missing out. Well, Amitesh, it was a wonderful conversation, man. And uh, Ram, there were a lot of places where I zoned out and I was thinking about what you said. I was thinking repeatedly about, the points you made and the things you said. And yeah, this is by far one of the best episodes that I have shot on this podcast. So, and thank you so much. It was lovely having you on the podcast.
Thank you, Anish. Thank you for being such a great host. Honestly, love the stories that you share. Podcasts hold a very close value to my life. I listen to Lex, I listen to the Diary of the CEO, I listen to Google DeepMind podcast, Dwarkesh, and honestly, this is one of the best learnings I've gotten. I would love it if any kind of value has been transferred to anybody who's viewing this podcast down the line. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I'm really grateful. I hope we keep in touch. Maybe a part two down the line when you get really, really successful, which is bound to happen. And maybe if I make it someday, right? So, really, really, really grateful for the opportunity. Keep going, man. And thank you so much again.